September 18, 2017 regular meeting of the Council of the City of Berkley. Ms. Boucher, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Pro Tem Baker.
Here.
Councilmember Blanchard.
Here.
Councilmember Gravlin.
Here.
Councilmember Kadekel.
Here.
Councilmember Stedman. Councilmember Turbrack.
Here.
And Mayor O'Dwyer.
Here. The first order of business tonight is the approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
Move to approve.
Move to approve by Councilmember Kadekel.
Support.
Support by Councilmember Blanchard. Ms. Boucher, would you please call the roll?
Blanchard.
Yes.
Gravlin.
Yes.
Kadekel.
Yes.
Turbrack.
Yes.
Baker.
Yes.
O'Dwyer.
Yes. And now I see Reverend Tal Sullivan is with us this evening. Would you please stand for the invocation?
Let's pray. Almighty God, we give you thanks for the many blessings that we are recipients of. We thank you for life today, that we have breath in our lungs, and with it we want to give you thanks. Thank you, God, for the blessings that we experience in our nation, in this city, the leaders, God, that you've placed over us at various levels. God, we thank you that you desire good things for us, and as we look to you and ask for your blessing now with this meeting and your blessings, God, just in our city, in all that is done to conduct business and to see life flourishing here. We ask that you would bless us, help us, God, in a time where the nations rage, as the psalmist said. Not to be in a rage, but God, for us to be a people of peace, where we would be reasonable with each other, and God, that our city would be one of those places that's just known for being a place where people who are very different from each other can get along and be reasonable and respectful. And so, God, we pray your blessing. I pray your blessing, Lord, over each of the leaders, God, over this council. Give them wisdom. Give them strength where they might feel at the end of themselves and where they feel like they have nothing left to give. We pray that you would bless them and their families. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Please remain standing for a pledge of allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And now we come to the citizens' comments portion of tonight's meeting, when you may present your thoughts on issues that are not included on tonight's agenda. Council members will not engage you in discussion. If your concern needs to be addressed by a member of city staff or a department of the city, please sign your name on the sheet provided at the clerk's desk. You may speak on a specific agenda item when it is being discussed. When an individual has completed their comments, we ask that you refrain from gestures of approval or disapproval, because that can be intimidating to some residents. When you come to the microphone, please state your name and city of residence.
Good evening. I'm Jeffrey Tong from Berkley resident, and this is Shirley Hansen behind me, also from Berkley. We're both members of the Berkley Historical Committee, and we're here to let you and everybody in Berkley know about the exciting new thing we have to offer the citizens of Berkley. We have made our third mug over the last few years, and this is one that I am very, very proud of. I think it came out wonderful. That's a beautiful color picture of the Berkley Theater the last night the theater was open, September 26, 1993. And you can even read the marquee. To close up the Berkley Theater, the owner ran one of his favorite movies, Yankee Doodle Dandy, with Jimmy Cagney. And a fitting way to close it, the movie theater opened in 1941. This movie came out in 1942, so it was a very good choice. The mugs are only $10. They're available at the Berkley Historical Museum, which is in the old fire station on Coolidge. We're open Wednesdays 10 to 1, Sundays 2 to 4. They're also available at the city clerk's desk and in the Berkley Public Library. We got these in on Wednesday at 12:30. I put up on Facebook that we had them, and by 1 o'clock we had 6 people rush to the museum to buy them. And I think Anita from the city clerk's office could say people have been running into the city clerk's office to buy them, so they are moving very well. There's only 288, I expect them to sell out. The thing that has surprised me is that I've had phone calls, emails, and Facebook messages from people all over the country. I have already mailed them today off to California, Tennessee, Kentucky, and Florida. Florida may be going to wash away, but they're all going to go out clinging on to a bit of Berkeley. So I think what we've learned is you can leave Berkeley, but you never really leave Berkeley. I will be in the hallway with my cash box and a good supply of mugs after this meeting tonight, and I will sell you as many as you want. All proceeds will of course, go to the Berkeley Historical Committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I'm not from Berkeley, but I think you guys will let me up here anyway. Vivian Carmody, I'm the DDA director. I just want to remind everybody that next week, September 27th, the DDA is having its first design guidelines public input session. We're inviting all of our business owners in the DDA district and Berkeley residents to be there. This is all about trying to envision what the DDA district will look like from a visual perspective, whether it's public space, whether it's the built environment. We'll be looking at rehab, a variety of different kinds of rehabs, parking spaces, because we have a lot of surface parking. We'll be looking at infill, which we all know has been a hot topic. Anyway, September 27th, 7 p.m., Berkeley High School Collaborative Center. The more people that show up and participate, it will be a fun evening. It's only an hour and a half, 7 to 8:30 p.m. I just think you'll find it a very rewarding and creative experience. The only other thing I want to mention is that we're really excited, and I put this out on a couple Facebook posts, that we are, the DDA is now funded 2 crosswalks on Coolidge. We'll be doing one north of Dorothea and one north of Earlmont. We're excited that we've been able to work in a collaborative process with HRC, with the city, with the DDA, and with Spalding de Decker to figure out a way to make this happen. So it's going to be great for the business district. It's going to be great for our pedestrians. I can't say how excited I am about these, and look for them end of November or early December, just in time for the holiday shopping season.
Thank you, Vivian. Seeing no one else coming to the microphone, then we'll move on to the consent agenda. Ms. Boucher, would you please read the items on tonight's consent agenda?
Approve of the minutes. Matter of approving the minutes of the regular 36th City Council meeting on Monday, August 21st, 2017, and work session on Friday, August 25th, 2017. Warrant. Matter of approving warrant number 1318 and proclamation number P0617. Matter of declaring the month of September as National Preparedness Month.
Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Motion approved.
Motion to approve by Mayor Pro Tem Baker.
Support.
Support by Councilmember Gravelin. Ms. Boucher, would you please call the roll?
Gravelin.
Yes.
Kadeco.
Yes.
Stedman.
Yes.
Turbrack.
Yes.
Baker.
Yes.
Blanchard.
Yes.
O'Dwyer.
Yes. And now we move to the regular agenda. Ms. Boucher, would you please read item number 1?
Recognitions, presentations. Matter of any recognitions or presentations from the consent agenda.
I've asked Councilmember Blanchard to read proclamation 0617.
Thank you, Your Honor. A proclamation of the Council of the City of Berkeley, Michigan, to declare the month of September as Historic National Preparedness Month. Whereas the state of Michigan experienced several instances in severe thunderstorms, flash flooding, and tornadoes over the last 2 years that resulted in a governor's disaster declaration, highlighting how emergencies and disasters can strike at any moment that places residents, property, and infrastructure in harm's way. And whereas every Berkley resident has the opportunity to prepare themselves and their communities for emergencies and disasters by taking the steps vital to reduce injury and loss of life in hazardous circumstances. And whereas being prepared includes staying informed about potential hazards that could affect the Berkley community, developing an emergency plan that includes places to go, who to contact during an emergency, and creating a 3-day emergency supply kit containing items necessary for survival in the event of an emergency. And whereas businesses can prepare for emergencies and disasters by establishing an emergency preparedness program, creating and implementing an all hazards emergency plan, testing and exercising that plan, and reevaluating systems to improve programs prior to an incident. And whereas the Michigan State Police, state and local governments, and emergency management partners are committed to helping residents and communities prepare before an emergency strikes. And whereas during this month and throughout the year, we join with numerous agencies, nonprofit organizations, and businesses to promote the importance of being prepared for all types of hazards. Therefore, the City of Berkley hereby recognizes September as National Preparedness Month and urges residents to be ready before emergencies and disasters occur. Introduced and passed the 18th day of September 2017 at a regular meeting of the Berkley City Council. Phil O'Dwyer, Mayor.
Thank you.
And I would also like to say that I brought some business information somewhere on the table for preparedness. I ordered stuff for individuals, for people with pets, people with disabilities, and it's back ordered. I didn't get it because I think everybody else in the country is trying to get it because of all the hurricanes. So when we get the stuff, it'll be placed in the clerk's office and at the library and at the Parks and Rec for people to pick up as soon as it comes in. Thank you.
Now we move along to item number 2. Ms. Boucher, would you please read item number 2?
Oath of office. Oath of office to the newly appointed Deputy City Clerk, Gina Marie Cipriani.
Is there a motion to approve administering the oath of office to Gina Cipriani? Move to approve by Councilmember Cadecle, support by Mayor Pro Tem Baker. So when the city clerk is ready, she can administer the oath.
I, Gina Marie Cipriani,
Having been duly appointed as Deputy City Clerk for the City of Berkley,
having been duly appointed as Deputy City Clerk for the City of Berkley,
do hereby solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
do hereby solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of Michigan,
the Constitution of the State of Michigan,
the Charter of the City of Berkley,
the Charter of the City of Berkley,
and that I will perform the duties of my office to the best of my ability.
and that I will perform the duties of my office to the best of my ability. Thank you, everybody. Look forward to working with everybody.
Yeah, well, Gina, just hold on a second. You don't get away that quickly. And then introduce your parents.
Oh, yes. Sorry about that. My parents were nice enough to come and attend this tonight. Tom and Nolene Cipriani.
Thank you very much, and we're delighted you're here. You're welcome. Very nice.
Great.
Our neighbors. Well, we're delighted to have your daughter on our staff. And now with that, Ms. Boucher, please read item number 3.
Motion number M6517, matter of approving the Macomb County Cooperative Bid Program purchase of one 2017 Ford F-250 pickup truck at a total cost not to exceed $30,426 from Signature Ford of Owasso, Michigan. Funds from the expenditure will come from account number 614-105-985-000.
Is there a motion to approve M6517?
Move to approve.
Moved to
Support.
approve by Councilmember Blanchard and Councilmember Tarbrack, second. Baumgarten.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Usually when you see a truck like this purchased, it's actually for our DPW, but this is for the purposes of our recreation department, more specifically the parks portion of our recreation department. It comes to the same way that the DPW also buys their vehicles. It's a cooperative purchasing agreement. That way the city leverages the best price possible because there's many other communities purchasing off the same contract. So That is basically our normal means. This was a planned replacement, and Teresa can give you a little bit more information on it.
Thank you. Good evening. As the city manager said, this was a planned replacement. This has been in our capital equipment replacement plan for several years. Now we are finally going to be able to replace a truck that was actually handed down to the department from public safety. It's the 2007 dog catcher vehicle, which has several problems, a lot of rust underneath. There was a lot of mileage on it, and I was told by our mechanic, Jim Grosdy, who does a phenomenal job at our public works department, that it has about 4 times the idling time than the mileage because of how it was used as a dog catcher vehicle. So at this point, it's basically not worth putting additional money into. It makes sense to replace it. We do use these vehicles daily to haul equipment to our fields, to haul trash from the parks, to do all sorts of things that it requires to maintain the 8 baseball fields and 7 parks that we're responsible for. Our maintenance staff uses them, and we're excited to get it replaced. We're grateful to, again, Public Works for helping us out with the specs. It was useful that they did the exact same thing last month. These prices are good through October 1st, so that's why I'm before you tonight, and we'll probably get it. It's about a 6 to 8 week time period from the time that hopefully council approves it, and then tomorrow I'll speak with our gentleman at Owasso Ford. So any other questions, I'm happy to answer.
Thank you. Councilman
Thank
Blanchard.
I have to ask a question. I noticed that you're equipping this with a snowplow prep package. Do your people plow snow also?
They do. This one actually will not have, it does say that because that's from the other one, but this one will not have the
Oh, okay.
snowplow prep package. That was something that I spoke with Sean about. This will not be on it.
Okay.
We will be adding a lift gate. We're actually, Public Works is bidding out 3. 1 will go to us on this, and that will be actually extremely useful. So we will be adding a lift gate to this cost as well, but that's separate.
Thank you.
Good. Any other questions? Discussion? Seems like a wise purchase. Ms. Boucher, would you please call the roll on M6517?
Knackle,
Yes.
Stedman,
Yes.
Verbrack,
Yes.
Baker,
Yes.
Blanchard,
Yes.
Gravlin,
Yes.
O'Dwyer.
Yes. And now, Ms. Boucher, would you please read item number 4?
Discussion, matter receiving a summary of the September 7th meeting, update of staff progress, and potential action plans.
Is there a motion to approve the matter of receiving this report?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Councilmember Stedman with support by Councilmember Knackle. Mr. Baumgarten.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I prepared a set of slides for you to update you on staff progress since our team got together for the special meeting. As you can see, the agenda item is there. So we want to cover, basically a summary of the meeting, discuss some of the items the takeaways from the city staff and how we've answered questions since, update you on what has gone on at the staff level, and then sort of prep you for our potential action plans and items that we're going to be bringing back to the council in the weeks and months to come. So first item, first and foremost, we'd be remiss if we didn't answer residents' questions. We've set up a website. It's berkleymish.org, our regular site. If you just put /rainevent17, it'll take you right to that one. It's accessible from the front page as well of our website, but that is a single stop for all the information pertaining to the August 28th event. It is the latest news. It is our frequently asked questions, the presentations, claim forms, maps, and a video of the special meeting that we had. Many residents submitted questions on what we were calling blue cards during that meeting. Those did not go into a void. We're updating our frequently asked questions document. There's another one that's going to be released either today or tomorrow that starts to really knock down those blue cards and get any unresolved questions answered for people. In reviewing those cards, I was grateful to see, I think we addressed many of those questions in the content of our presentation. And I thank everybody who submitted questions ahead of time, whether it's through social media, conversation, phone calls, emails. All of those avenues are still out there for people, and we've had a lot of really productive conversations with our residents since. But if somebody has not yet checked that information out, berkleymish.org, rainevent17, we'll at least get the conversation flowing, and then city staff stands at the ready to answer any additional questions they may have. So, on the actual staff work that has gone on, we met this morning with HRC, the city's engineers. to start outlining the capacity analysis that we discussed at length during the October 7th special meeting. I'm sorry, the September 7th special meeting. So we are outlining the scope and what exactly we want to see, what our intent is for an action plan to come out of this. I'm of the view, and the feedback I've gotten from many of our residents say it's not enough to know. What are you going to do about the knowledge you have on hand? So we're not going to just generate some study that sits on a shelf somewhere. It's going to become complete with an action plan. So we say, you see there's some of the information that we're working on doing. Likewise, not just internally, but as a regional approach, we're working with Water Resource Commissioner's office. There's actually a 12 towns meeting coming up, and then that's formally hosted by the Water Resource Commissioner's office. But I spent the last couple of days and then last week when we were at the statewide convention talking to local leaders and other participants in the 12 town drains. We want to get together a meeting that has, city managers, the engineers, DPW directors, all of those that are tasked with, delivering a sanitary sewer, a combined sewer, a storm system, a level of service to their residents. And we're getting all of us together so that we can help utilize some of that influence and turn it towards Water Resource Commission or try to get some additional actions out of them. We likewise are working with our own, as part of this capacity analysis too that's going to come out, is we'll be discussing how can we add capacity in our system, not just what does it do, but also what easy approaches or some of them not so easy approaches could be done, say as we're building out a new road, as we're resurfacing, as we're making other infrastructure improvements. What is available there as far as an opportunity goes? We've discussed potential opportunities at our community center as well. As we move forward in the discussion of discussing what could be a new recreation center in the future, we've got a lot of parking lot there. Is there opportunities for detention? Is there opportunities for green technologies to be incorporated into a potential building? These are the kind of things that we're working on that I want to have for you. These are probably the fall into over the next couple of months. Those plans will come out, but I'm happy to report that the capacity analysis scope of work and the general outline of that project will come before this council for consideration on October 2nd. And I got HRC agreed to that timeline today. So you'll have that. That'll really start things off. That is taking a scientific and a strategic approach to making those improvements. And we're excited to bring that forward to you because that really, there's going to be a lot of work that's going to come out of that. And that feels like we're making real progress there. Likewise, on restricted covers, Derek has already reached out to East Jordan Ironworks, who make our restricted covers. He's gotten a proposal, so he's got kind of some unit costs. We're discussing what type of restricted cover. Again, wanting to take a very strategic approach to this. We don't want to accidentally cause surface flooding where it's not necessary or where it has the potential of impacting some other portion of city life and here in Berkley. So we're going to be making an initial purchase. Like I say, I'd like that to come before the city council in either sometime in October, whether it's the first or second meeting in October, but at least get the ball rolling on making a partial purchase of those items. I was happy to see that we currently have about 44% of the city already covered with restricted covers. Again, we'll be incorporating that into our mapping, and we are shy about 1,000 out of 1,800 covers. So a phased approach of getting all those audited, figuring out to what level of restriction is appropriate. All that's going to come out of our capacity analysis and the subsequent steps from there. So you'll see some additional information for you. So again, ball is already rolling on that. We're excited to get that information out to people. And one of the big ones, incentive for residents. Thankfully, there's a couple of different programs that have been utilized by communities around us and abroad for many years. So we've got some good information to rely upon. We're looking at what can we reasonably do. We want to make sure we want to get some kind of financial incentive in place for our residents, for check valves, backflow preventers. A big part of that is going to be, it's going to be incumbent upon us to make sure that people understand the requirements, whether it's a maintenance requirement, a code requirement, understand the requirement to understand how the person's own home system works before they put it in, so they can make the best choice possible on installing that. So that won't just be an incentive program that happens in a vacuum. Again, the outreach on this and the information we need to put in people's hands so they know what risks, if any, they're accepting when they put these things in is going to be incredibly important. One of the things that is not a financial incentive, but is sort of an in-kind service, is if somebody comes before us and says, I'm putting this in, we could waive the permit fees for that, which we can bring that to City Council in the next, by October 2nd. So that will happen by resolution from City Council to say if you have a plumbing permit pulled, we can waive the fees to install that. So again, these are the little things I think will help incentivize the use from that. So excited to bring that before City Council at our next meeting. Rain monitoring. We envision a twofold monitoring process. That's what we discussed with our engineers today. Not only rain monitoring, but flow monitoring in our sewer system. So there's a one-to-one connection there. We don't just know how much rain falls, but we know how it affects the system at large. If we see a 3-inch rainstorm, we can see how the system responds. Hopefully it's 3 inches over a long course of time. I don't want to be back in this situation again, nor do any of you, nor do our residents. But once we have the modeling in place, if we have that flow data, we can make sure that our model is keeping up with what we're seeing out there, leading us to make more improvements if needed, or making sure that we have reliable data. Again, I think data is how we solve this problem, so knowing how to fix, where to fix, and where to assess our somewhat limited resources on this is going to be incredibly important moving forward. I don't want to be in a situation where we put millions of dollars into something that potentially still has some of the same shortcomings as what we have now as far as a weather event goes, but infrastructure is the kind of thing you're never done investing in. So just about the time you get done with one part of your system, it's time to go back through and start your maintenance or replacement or really anything that could come up. So all of knowing, monitoring, and assessing appropriately is our best bet moving forward. As I alluded to earlier, this is going to be a regional event. So the county has a system that, of course, covers at least 12 towns, as we know from the very name of our system. But the GWK footprint is actually 14 communities. It goes all the way out to Madison Heights and the Red Run Drain. We cannot solve this issue in a vacuum or in a bubble or however the cliche goes. That's why we're working with all of our communities. That's why we're working with Water Resource Commissioner's office. We need to share the data, make sure they know what we're doing. I have no issue with Berkley being on the absolute forefront of trying to address these issues, and I hope that we're the ones that other people look to say, Berkley's really trying to do something. Berkley's trying to increase its level of service adequately and beyond. So we want to be sort of that shining sewer system on the hill for not only the county, but hopefully Michigan-wide, because one of the things that I continually heard from everyone from Iron Mountain to Monroe at the AMML conference last week was, no, we got that too. We don't know really exactly how to solve it, and we live in fear of the next rainstorm, if it's going to be another 14 or like we had. For us, we have August 28th, 2017. Most of the communities I talked to had a date they could go right to that said, oh yeah, no, we got something like it too since then. So we're not alone in this, but we can be the leaders here. And then there was some interest on the residential level on what the individual homeowner can do. I've had a lot of questions about that on social media as well and emails. We're part of a watershed council. It's the Huron-Clinton Watershed Council. We've reached out to them, started a dialogue on getting them to come in. They offer actually a really cheaply made, but an inexpensive rain barrel purchasing program that they've done throughout the watershed for years. So it's great to find a regional partner on this, someone who's already way ahead of the bar. and getting them to come in, host a sale, whether it's a standalone or whether it complements one of our other events so that people can make good use of it. But those resources are out there, and Berkley has full access to them. And so you'll see that come back before you, too, in the next couple of weeks. So I want to have a date pinned down that we can share far and wide on when our residents can come and get some rain barrels for their own home. So I think that's a quick summary of where we've gone since then. So again, the takeaways here, I hope, are that starting with the October 2nd meeting, you're going to have some action items that are, we're taking some real steps to address these issues, and we need to be strategic. We're going to try to do this as much as possible with our existing resources before we go in front of the voters and perhaps ask for supplemental resources to make things happen. So we need to know what we can do in-house with our own resources now, and you'll see that information become very clear over the weeks and months ahead. So I welcome any questions.
Thank you, Matt. And Councilmember Blanchard.
Thank you, Your Honor. Is this capacity analysis that's going to be done by HRC going to lead us into a flow or a hydraulic model that we can use?
Derek is sitting there in the back. Derek thankfully speaks engineering. I've been working on the policy side of things, but Derek can certainly give you some better information.
It is going to generate a model that can be used in the future for sure. There are different levels of examining this, and I'm sure HRC can allude to that next week, but yes, it will be modeled in some respect, and they will be able to address the the pluses and minuses of the model that they're going to run.
Also, we've been able to get our system ties into the county at a number of nodes. We got any agreement with the county that they'll help us when it comes to a node analysis at some of these points, or are we just going to have to make some assumptions?
HRC did reference in some of our discussions that there is some county information that can be made available to us. So I would hope that that information would come down and that we'd be able to incorporate that into our study as well.
Some of our neighboring communities that have had storms in the past have already started a process like this, and during that time, the county did much of this analysis. Both Beverly Hills and Berkley. I love the city so much you can't stop saying it. Both Beverly Hills and Birmingham have done something like this before, and we're trying to work with Southfield too to see where they're at on it. They're one of our 12-town partners.
Right, the way they have input to our system also.
Right.
Significant input.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Councilmember Terbrack.
Thank you. Derek, if you could talk for just a minute about the restrictor plates. We have 44% of the city right now, but more around the strategy. I know the city manager mentioned a number of times the word strategic, which I think is critical in all of this, but in your opinion, what are things that you're looking for? Is it, different elevations, different, how things are flowing? What is the most important things? Because, initially, it was, let's put restrictor plates on, but I don't think spamming restrictor plates across the city without analyzing where we're putting them and why we're putting them in certain places is actually much more important than just throwing them down just to say we did something.
That is correct, and that was a concern that we had. Certainly we can do that. I mean, we can go through the city and put these restrictor plates on the catch basins, but I think we need to look at it a little more closely. I think we need HRC to look at the elevations, to look at the direction of flow of the water, the drainage areas that flow to specific catch basins, to figure out where should we go first. And that's what we're looking for direction from them, to give my team sort of a roadmap to say this is where we're going to go first. And our hope is to tackle this at least in a couple different phases when it comes to restricted covers. We're as eager as anyone to start this process and move forward, and we talked about that at length today in our meetings. So we would like even a preliminary sort of analysis from HRC to tell us where we could go as quick as possible, and then as they get deeper into the study, which will take some time, we can revisit that work and do more of it, or tweak it a little bit as well. But we asked them today as well to give us sort of a preliminary outlook at where to go with restricted covers, understanding that this really needs to be a phased approach. Because this will, the restricted covers do cause increase in and the water in the street. And we have residents concerned with that as much as anything as well. So this is really a balancing act, but we recognize that these covers, this is a very important piece to moving forward. And we need to have some engineering done to understand where do we go first.
I imagine engineering will also play a role in looking at other potential things that we can do in, city right-of-ways, whether it's some sorts of ditches, swales, whatever the case may be, that would somehow, if we have the ability to do that. But again, it's a situation for me where we have to have a plan as to why we're going to do, whether it's in medians, okay, why, where's it gonna go, what's the point? I certainly want us to consider everything, but I don't want us to just start throwing out ideas. I want us to have ideas that have a very practical, reasoned, strategic approach to make sure that we can't control the weather. We understand that. We can only control what happens in the city. We have very little control over what happens with the regional authority right now. I mean, we can certainly give our input, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to go anywhere, or at least very quickly. So being as proactive as we can be with the things that we control, having a very strategic plan as this is what we're doing, and this is why we're doing it, and this is the impact that it should have on us, so that when we get significant rain, because it's going to happen again sometime in the future, then we need to see, look, okay, we did X, Y, and Z. What worked? Maybe what are things that we can improve on? But I don't want to come back, whether it's 3 years, 5 years, or 10 years down the road, and say, oh, we didn't think about that. I want to make sure everything that we do has very strong reasoning behind it. Thank you.
Anybody else? Councilor Beckley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to thank you, Mr. Schuler, and you, Mr. Baumgarten, for the work that you're doing. You talked about the covers, 44%, I think you said. Are they in a certain area? Are they throughout the city?
That's a good question. They are well distributed throughout our city, and thanks to the SAW grant and that inventorying that was done, we have that map of all of our catch basins and all of our covers and how they sit today. So we have that resource available to us, but they are well distributed throughout the city and have been in place, presumably for decades, and have, I'm sure there's been minor tweaks throughout the years, but for all intents and purposes, this is the layout that those before us sort of put together and worked for some time, and now we're looking at potentially altering that. But absolutely, that information is all available right now, and it'll save us time when it comes to the study because we have a lot of that data already in hand.
Well, 44% is almost half.
Correct.
And can we deduce anything from the impact of having half those covers in place? I mean, would a map tell us anything?
Well, I think as part of the study, Mayor, that will come out of, that has certainly helped us over the decades. There's no question about that. To what extent, I think we're all sort of curious, and I'm hopeful that study will help enlighten us with respect to that question as well, or what has saved us.
Any other questions?
Yep. Sorry.
Mr. Tarbrack.
When was the last time we televised? I know we talked about televising the sewers. When was the last time, and how frequently of a thing does that happen? Or how frequently does that happen, I should
So
say?
it's the last complete city cycle was 2 years. So we went through the 57 miles in 2 years. We're in a 2 to 3 year cycle, generally speaking, which is something that I'm very proud of because I know that communities around us can't say that. And that is our first line of defense, is being in the pipes. And to this day, that's our first line of defense. You have to be through the pipes to have any understanding of how the pipes function. Now, when you're talking pipe size, that's a different discussion. But keeping the pipes that we have functioning as efficient as they can possibly be is what we're trying to do and what we have done.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Blanchard.
Thank you, Your Honor. What percentage have we got that have been structurally lined? Do you know offhand?
Oh, I don't know, Matt, if you have that exact number.
28%. I think we're at 16 of the 57 miles.
Okay.
High 20s, which again is
That's higher
it's
than
an
most
incredible,
of the cities around here.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot of
Well,
communities on that bandwagon now, but Berkeley has been doing that for over 20 years, structurally lining the existing pipes. So that's, again, something to be proud of. The pipe is the pipe, but
Yeah.
that is maintaining the integrity of what you have, because pipes do deteriorate.
Councilor Gravlin.
The preliminary restrictor plate analysis from HRC will be ready October 2nd. That piece of it is going to come to us in October or be looked
No,
at?
that will be,
piece is
that will be
not-
part of the document that you will be reviewing. So after that meeting, that will be the initial thing that we're going to be looking for them to give us direction on,
Okay.
so that we can move on those restricted covers as soon as we can with the information that they need.
Okay.
I would like to get before the city council, if we have an idea of how many we're going to purchase, because they come in various restrictions. So if we know we're going to be utilizing, 200 4-hole restrictors or 6-hole restrictors, go ahead and get those ordered, because it's about a 2-month lead time for a purchase of that size. So we're going to try to get that back in front of council so that we can get the ball rolling on that.
You also mentioned potential overtime for DPW staff to clear restrictor plates as a possibility. Is that going to change our messaging to residents, or are we still?
No,
will
I don't
recommend
think
they
the
don't
messaging
touch
changes,
clearing
but it's
debris?
just,
It will be done by DPW.
it's just alluding to the fact that with more restricted covers comes more holding water in the streets. So that will in itself spur more calls and more questions, and the possibility that we're going to have staff go out and, clear structures as debris catches on the structure. You sometimes have to clear them. So during the heavy rain events, that's something that typically happens already, and that will presumably then potentially grow with more restricted covers. So it's just alluding to that point, that we often get called during very heavy rain events where areas that, for whatever reason, leaves or whatever are blocking those restricted holes, that we have to come out and clear those, clear that debris so that the drain can function.
Thank you.
Councilman Stedman.
I think it's important too in messaging to all of the residents that you talk about the importance of not removing the drain covers, because then it takes the water down in the street, but then it goes up in the basements. And I
Very
think that's a
quickly.
very important informational thing to pass on.
No question, in addition to a safety
And it's
concern.
dangerous, right?
Extremely dangerous to be doing that. Those covers are very heavy.
Mhm.
That amount of water could pull somebody in very easily. So in addition to the safety issue there, certainly introducing that water instantly to the system also could have repercussions.
Mayor Pro Tem Baker.
Thank you, Your Honor. And I too would like to thank staff and administration for your materials and work both leading up to the session back on the 7th, and then the activity that has been continuing ever since, and then will continue after this meeting tonight. Thank you for that continued focus. And we can't emphasize enough the need to continue this positive focus on these actions and coming up with these plans. I'm really pleased to hear the units of measure that you're describing, days and weeks and months, as opposed to, months and quarters and years and things like that, because everything that we can do to provide fast and timely information to our residents and to our teams so that we can make wise decisions, I think is very prudent. So thank you for that. Most of my comments were already addressed elsewhere. The only thing a couple of things I think, in the course of doing the studies and the restricted covers and things like that, to whatever extent we can include the residents in the conversation, I think that would be key. They know how well the system operates because they've been the ones that sit out there and see it all the time and things like that. So to the extent that we can use that to affirm or validate the formulas and equations and things like that, I think it'd be really helpful to engage the community to provide that kind of input as part of this collaborative process here that we're going through. And again, it sounds like we'll have a couple of really neat things coming to our next meeting to continue this conversation. In addition to the restrictor plates, we'll also hear about some residential support programs, some things that we might be able to do to help on a number of fronts, both at the residential level, at the city level, and then at the regional level. Mm-hmm. It's a multi-tiered approach to try to address this, from a system that was designed many, many decades ago when weather patterns were different, and things have obviously changed a lot since then. So I think it feels like the strategic approach that we're taking here, combined with multiple fronts at the residential level, the city level, and the regional level, make a lot of sense. And then again, Matt, thank you for you and staff for making the material available from the meeting on the 7th. As you mentioned at the onset, I'll just close by again reminding folks that our intent tonight wasn't to repeat that same presentation from last time, but pick up where we left off. So if there's things that that you want to see or more of the details from that conversation, they're all available on the city's website. Thank you again.
Thank you. Councilmember Telbrad.
One last question for you, Mr. Schuler. The cleaning of the catch basins with the Vector, what does the typical program look like for the city? How do you decide where, when, how frequently? I've just heard from a few residents that, when the things were backing up, they had leaves or things in their back, coming up as well. So what is I guess, what's our program around that? How does that operate?
It's a rotational method, basically. So we just basically go through each of the 5 sections of our city on a rotational basis. So obviously there could be a situation where we're going to look at a specific location, but generally speaking, we're looking to rotate through the city and cycle through the entire city on a rotational basis.
So if a resident was curious or wanted to know if, when the last time their basin was cleaned out, is there somewhere they can, on the website, go on the website and submit a request, or just see a map somewhere?
They could, it's not specifically probably on a map, but they're welcome to just call the DPW and we can pull that information for them to see.
Great, thank you.
Very good. Councilmember Grappling.
Sorry, just to elaborate on that point, roughly how long does it take to get around to each of the 5 areas? So is this over the course of a year, or? 2
to 3 years
Okay.
is that cycle time
Okay.
for the 50-some miles of sewer. So.
Okay, thank you.
Well, thank you all for the work you've done so far in helping us deal with this significant problem in our community. I'm very much hopeful that the node analysis, where we interact with the county system, doesn't become a problem. Because in my way of looking at this, no matter how much flow we have coming through here, if it can't get to someplace else and get away from here, we are going to have a problem on our hands. So, of course, that underlines your point, Matt, about the regional nature of how this has to be handled. But I think that thought brought
Yeah, it did. Thank you, Your Honor. I just wanted to add, as several of us were at the Michigan Municipal League convention last week, and we took this opportunity to do what it's intended to do, and that is to collaborate with our regional partners and colleagues in other cities and ask them questions about what's going on. And I know I did, and I'm sure my colleagues did as well. I spoke with Southfield, Oak Park, Huntington Woods, Hazel Park, Ferndale, and Birmingham, folks from all those communities about, and you recognize where they are on the maps as our neighbors, in terms of how they dealt with their issues in the past, because they've each had their stories, and how can we work together with the county to come up with a regional solution. So to just build on your point that we've planted those seeds and let it be known that we're looking to do everything we can do within Berkley, but recognizing that it's not a Berkley problem, and that together we need to address this more regionally.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you, Derek. Is there anybody in the audience wants to add or ask a question? Yes. Please come to the microphone.
My name is Mary Stapula. I live at 2685 Kenmore. On August 28th, we have 3 new builds in the block on my street between Catalpa and Wiltshire. On August 28th, immediately to the south of the last new build, every single house had a backup. I know of at least 2 who weren't reported, but we all had backups. I've lived in Berkley almost 20 years, and we never had a trickle of water in our basement before that horrific rainstorm in 2014. The new builds went up after that, and we had a lot of rain on the 28th, but we've had a lot of rain like that before. And I remember in the past our street flooding. I remember my husband out there with a broom. We never had a trickle of water. I'm wondering, and I'm sure you have reviewed the maps that we saw at the meeting a couple of weeks ago. I wonder if there is a pattern that you've been able to identify or establish, because unlike 2014, we had pockets of problems this last time. Is there a pattern of new builds and backups in these pockets where we had problems on the 28th that have been established? Is there any kind of a connection that's revealing itself? And let me add that just before the rainstorm, this newest build had been landscaped. So there was a lot of activity on that site, dirt and stuff. So I'm just
Okay.
curious about that.
Thank you for your question.
Thank you.
And we'll hand it over to City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have not seen a connection like that, but one of the things that we do with our capacity analysis, in fact, it's already started with our GPS mapping, is an impervious what they call impervious surface, rooftops, garages, driveways, patios, anything where the rain falls but can't immediately come into the water or the groundwater or the sewer combined sewer network. We haven't seen any correlation yet between where the homes flooded and where new builds can be found. But again, the impervious surface study is something that is one of the considerations on a capacity analysis. So if rain falls on something it can't soak into, where does it end up going? We'll have more specific information on that once we delve into the data. But as of right now, there is no trend popping out between the two. One of the things I've talked to other communities about when they were talking about this was they said, well, are you doing a street sweeping program? And I said, yeah, no, we do street sweeping. That's on the surface. Why? But they said, well, if you have a lot of construction going on, if there's a possibility of runoff from a development site, make sure you keep the streets swept so that silt and anything like that doesn't end up in your system. I was happy to check with Derek, and he said they're through the whole city. Derek, want to talk about how much? But frequently, and I was just kind of happy to find out because I had not made that correlation myself, but that is one way we're protecting new builds from becoming an issue even before the building's there. Sorry, long way to get around a short answer. But Derek, do you want to talk about street sweeping at all?
Sure. So, our street sweeper's out basically every day. There are some weather conditions where it doesn't go out, but it's gone out pretty much every day, and we're at about a week to a week and a half kind of cycle on sweeping the entire city. So obviously if emergencies come up, main breaks and things, those obviously take priority, but that sweeper is on the move a ton and is out and about sweeping the streets. So you're naturally always going to have some amount of sediment in a combined system. That's the nature of the beast, but obviously we're looking to get as much of it picked up as possible in the right of way.
Okay, thank you. Matt, if you would repeat the question.
Sure. And hopefully I'm summarizing correctly, but our neighbor was asking about why does this keep happening? Is there something that we're not finding? It came so fast and then went away so fast. And then plumber she spoke with since said that his suspicion was that the system was already full when the rain event happened, and then somehow it cleared itself and took the rest of the rainstorm. Am I summarizing adequately? Okay. Again, like we talked about at the last meeting, we think intensity played a huge issue in this particular rainstorm. Yes, it kept raining, but whereas we got 3 inches, the first inch and a half or so probably came within the first half an hour, 15 minutes to half an hour, and that area that was underneath that particular cloud, it filled very fast, which is why we saw the surcharging. And then when the rains lessened a bit but kept raining, we saw the system catch up very quickly. And again, those waters recede from basements, but the system kept handling it, below those floor drains, which is why it disappeared so quickly. Again, that works. That most plausible explanation works with what we saw anecdotally, but we want to know for sure next time with flow data and rain data, so we have a better answer for residents.
Very good. Thank you. Is it possible that we can have an airlock in a system like this?
There's enough.
Given the holes in the system, if you will, the covers that have air in them as well, I don't think so, Mayor, but I mean, that's a question that we can ask of the sewer experts to see if that could be the case. Obviously, when you introduce a large amount of flow into a system, that air, that space has to be dissipated in order for the volume of the water to then occupy that space. But that's really a question for the experts that maybe we can ask them at the next council meeting as well.
Okay, very good. Thank you. And thank you, Matt, and your staff for all you're doing to try to, oh, we have no speaker.
Dennis Hannon, Berkley. One thing that was mentioned, silt in the sewers, got me thinking that we should be enforcing better the silt fencing laws that the county has on the books, and maybe help them with the enforcement on that. A question I had for Mr. Schuler was, if it's safe or even wise for residents to clear debris themselves if they see a catch basin. Not necessarily, definitely not removing an actual catch basin, but if there's debris in the catch basin, if residents can help out to kick it out of the way themselves.
My only concern is I'm just worried about the safety component of it, and obviously to encourage that or promote that is something that I worry about. I would much prefer if a call be made if there's something that doesn't seem right, and let the DPW staff address it. That's just my personal opinion on that.
Yeah. Generally speaking, please don't wade into a flooded street for any reason, whether it's in a vehicle or on foot. If you can't see where your foot is going, then it's not wise to walk through that water, because there could be any number of hazards found there. So don't don't try to pull it up. Don't try to clear it yourself. Wait, call DPW and let them come address it. If a street remains flooded after a rain event, let them do it, please.
Very good. Thank you all. Oh, we have another one.
I'm Stacy Stevens. I am a resident of Berkley. I'm over near Catalpa and Kipling area. And of course, my basement flooded, otherwise I probably wouldn't be here. First off, thank you so much to all of the teams working on this. I really appreciate it. I'm hoping my question's a quick one. So I know that we don't have anything finalized as far as the incentives for, having something like the preventer. I'm sorry, I don't remember what it's called.
Check valve, backflow preventer, yeah, there's a couple different names.
Yes, okay, that. And I've been thinking about having one installed, but I'm kind of hesitant because I don't know if whatever the incentive program will be retroactive to support those that have already purchased one. But then I also know on the flip side, you had mentioned to kind of hold off on that so we would be aware of the risks associated with that. So I guess my question is, if someone did decide to purchase one, if you've considered making that incentive retroactive.
We haven't ruled out anything on that program, whether it goes back to the storm itself or someone that may have put that in the week thereafter. But definitely speak with your plumber. Again, right. If you want to contact myself or the DPW director, there are very specific questions that you should ask a plumber before you install that, and make sure that he goes through with you a maintenance schedule and plan for making sure that the check valve is ready to go when the time comes. So.
Okay, and if I do install one before the plan comes out, I would ask you to consider the option of retroactive. Sure. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Hello, Jim Pesta, Berkley resident. Just a couple questions. The city of Berkley's age, shouldn't we already know the capacity? I mean, wouldn't it be something that we should have on the books? Or shouldn't we have had it done after 2014 to figure out where,
the major issues where people had the most water in their basement. It just seems like it would be something that should have been done already or should already be on the books. It seems like we shouldn't have to have that being done before we get some, answers. Also, how big are the rain barrels going to be to make an impact? It doesn't seem like 55 gallons is going to be that big a deal.
Two questions there. The first, the process leading up to doing this capacity analysis really started in the time just before and just after the 2014 storm. That's when we applied for and received the SAW grant. That's what allowed us to do the GPS mapping on a 90-10 cost split with the state. That was baseline work that needed to be done before we moved on to the capacity analysis. So I guess, to put it very simply, the rain beat us to having this done, but the work was being done already leading up to 2017. So that's what's going to make the capacity analysis easier and we'll have results faster than we normally would. The second part of it, 55 gallons in, as a one-off, you're right, is not going to help. But there is no one way to address this issue. So if we can incentivize a widespread usage of it, 55 gallons multiplied by the factor of 10 and 10 hundreds and thousands, you start to make an impact. But that alone, you're absolutely correct to say, is not going to solve anything. It needs to be done in a wide scope of little solutions.
In September 7th, we were told that we didn't have pumps in the system and that we would go to 12 Mile and I-75. But isn't the lowest point of Berkley like 11 in Woodward? So are we fighting against gravity?
No, we're not fighting against it. All the gravity sort of leads towards, there's a point of discharge over by 11 Mile and Woodward there, but we're not fighting it by any means. That is the major exit for the county system. We dump in all over the city of Berkeley, and it's transmitted. There's a large line that is owned by the county that then takes it out of the city and then sends it down 12 Mile towards 75. So somewhere like 12 and Stevenson, I think, is about where it's at.
Okay, thank you.
Very good.
That's a 132-inch line.
It's a big one.
Yeah.
I think I saw 4 Ninja Turtles down there the other day. So.
You put a lot of Ninja Turtles in there.
Well, final question.
Microphone, please.
Come to the microphone. You must come to the microphone, please.
Those backflow valves are expensive, and it's my understanding one won't do it. You need one wherever you have a drain line coming in your basement. Isn't it a crapshoot? Because we have neighbors, I'm sure all of us, who have them now, and they had sewage problems from the rain, so.
It's important to know how the house is laid out. Now, the current plumbing code says that, yes, you've got a main stack that leads out of the house, and anything in the basement that leads to it, whether it's a floor vent, a downstairs toilet, a laundry tub, those branches on new construction are all protected by individual valves.
Right.
But you do have the option of sort of retroactively putting in a whole home check valve that could shut. It's important to note that shut is shut. So whether you can't, it's not advisable to use any water because it's all going to find its way back out. But there are inherent risks, and that's why I said committing to a maintenance plan is absolutely vital with those because everything hinges on that seal. So whether there's the big three that I keep seeing are root obstructions, if there is grease in the line that can gum that shut, that rendering it completely ineffective, and then also any hard materials or substances that block the closing of that would all render it basically useless. So maintenance is huge with these, and that's why I advised your neighbor to go over with the plumber the maintenance plan, the maintenance schedules, and how to keep that thing ready to go. So, because when the time comes and it doesn't work, or the time comes and it doesn't get a good seal, then you're right, you might as well not have bought it.
So they have to be maintained to
Yes.
be effective.
Oh, yeah.
If they are maintained, then what percentage of the time are they effective? I mean, I know if we had another 2014 event, we'd all be suffering the aftermath probably. But for the rain that we had on the 28th, if we invest the money in something like that and we make sure that it's maintained, what percentage of safety can we look to have?
I have not seen it expressed that way. I will absolutely try to find that answer. I haven't seen it expressed as like a, 60% of the time it's effective kind of thing. But I will try to find that answer for you. The feedback I have is that when properly installed and maintained, whether it's a 14 event, whether it's a 17 event, it holds back that pressure and keeps the surcharging from going on. So I will try to find it expressed that way.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Baker.
Thanks. Yeah, just on that point, yeah, the whole home installation is typically done outside. And so that way it's a single point in and out. And that notion of maintenance is absolutely crucial to ensure that if and when it needs to work, it needs to work. And the literature that I saw when I was reviewing mine was measured in pounds per square inch, and all this kind of what pressure can it withstand and those types of things. And absolutely the notion of having regular maintenance on these things is absolutely crucial to ensure that it can do what it needs to do.
Sure.
Well, the issue in our beautiful city is all the wonderful trees we have, and those roots and all kind of growth happens, and of course that will infiltrate any of these shutters, flappers, or whatever name they're using for it, and that's why it has to be maintained fairly regularly. Councilor Blanchard.
Just another thing, Your Honor. One thing, when there's a rain event and that valve shuts, you cannot use the system in your house because the water from your toilet or your shower is going to go down to your basement and come up in your floor drains because it's getting against the closed valve. So you have to be very careful of that.
Valve's doing its job.
Valve's doing its job, yeah.
So don't do yours.
Well, very good. We will leave that topic. It's in good hands. Matt and his staff and the engineers are all working to come up with some ideas that we can work with at the next council meeting. So thank you all for that, and thank you for your input on this. Ms. Boucher, would you please read item number 5?
Motion number M6617, matter of approving a special land use request for the Archdiocese of Detroit for Our Lady of La Salette, 2600 Harvard, north side of Harvard, between Kipling and Coolidge, requesting special use approval for a parking lot for a place of worship.
Is there a motion to approve M6617?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Councilmember Stedman. Motion to approve by Councilmember Stedman. Any support? Let me ask this question again. It has been moved by Councilmember Stedman, M6617. Is there any support?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
I will support it on the basis that we are able to discuss it.
So you are supporting it? Very good. So it has been approved and supported. Mr. Baumgarten.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The request here before you is a special land use specific to the western 2 parcels owned by Our Lady La Salette Church. These parcels are currently house a garden, some green space, and a children's play area. The Planning Commission has been working through sort of 3 concurrent updates here. The first being for a planned unit development for the school property. The second being this parking lot that would need to be required, if and when the PUD would ever go through. And then there's a southern parking expansion south side of Harvard that would accommodate the some change in uses that go on at the what used to be the Friary, but kind of be more of a rec center now. This comes before you because the special land use falls to City Council to be the approving body. The Planning Commission has gone through a public hearing process. I've gone through fact-finding. They made a recommendation to approve this item, which is why it comes before you today. Obviously, in context, this hinges upon the project to the north, the planned unit development, the residential portion of the building. They have both the applicant specific to this project as well as the applicant for the planned unit development have both expressed that the expansion of parking will be in order to share it with the proposed development to the north there. The site plan that was approved along with the special land use was done so with a couple of different conditions. These conditions, the applicant has not responded to the conditions yet, has not resubmitted its plan to show compliance with that. I've noted in the supplemental that came out today, standards for approval, but ultimately, the City Council has three options here outside of postponing. If the council were to take action, they can approve with conditions, or deny outright. Staff recommendation is that you get a full plan and can audit the viability of this in the context of the plan unit development to see if there are any conditions that need to be offered at this step. Obviously, staff can only make a recommendation on this and it falls to the City Council. But if you're going to place this item in context, if there needs to be some additional items, some additional conditions required in order to make this a more, make the situation here a better service, or to apply to more closely to one of the standards for approval, it would be, I think, appropriate to do it then and not here in a vacuum as a one-off, not knowing what the plan for the PUD is ultimately, what form that's ultimately going to take. So, again, staff recommendation only. Our city attorney, I ran it by him. He has no opposition to that. So, again, staff recommendation only. So, but I think it's the best way to move forward for what it's worth.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Cadecki.
Again, I want to explain that when the Planning Commission sends something to us, we still have to discuss it, and that's why I supported this motion. However, based on what the city manager has said, I am moving that we postpone this indefinitely till we know the context of this development. It is a standalone, I understand, but I need more information, because if they're not going to do this, if the PUD doesn't go through, then there's no sense in sitting here discussing it. It's like getting a puzzle and not having all the pieces. Are you going to start the puzzle? No, because you know you'll never finish it. So I'd rather have all the pieces of the puzzle in front of me, and therefore I am moving to postpone this indefinitely.
Okay. So now there's a motion on the floor to postpone indefinitely. Is there a second to that motion?
Support.
Support by Councilor Blanchard. Now we have the motion to postpone indefinitely. If that is the case, then we call for a vote on that. Mr. Attorney?
Yes, you can certainly do that.
In other words, additional discussion is not necessary if we're postponing it.
There can be no additional discussion on the main motion. There could be discussion on the merits of postponing.
Okay, fair enough. Any thoughts on postponing? Councilor Blanchard.
Thank you, Your Honor. In looking at the data that we got about an hour before the meeting, I have a number of questions about the substantiating data and need clarification. The one that comes to light is compliance with Oakland County stormwater standards for rainwater detention, is what they say in here. Now, that doesn't make sense. We have city standards. Are we not going to enforce the city standards? We need to find out. Any parking lot over 6,100 square feet needs to have a stormwater retention plan. There is no stormwater retention plan. Are we going to use the counties? Are we going to use the cities? There needs to be a tremendous amount of clarification, I think, before we move forward with this.
Okay. Councilor Stedman.
Yes, to build a parking lot before there is any decision on the PUD will just eliminate unnecessarily a great deal of green space. And so I would be in favor of postponing this indefinitely.
Okay. Mr. Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you. Yeah, to postponing, I'm fine with that. I do think in the context it makes sense to look at it. If it comes to us for consideration from Planning Commission, then we'd look at it in its entirety. If this were to come just straight up, I would not be inclined to support it as is.
Okay. Mr. Tarback.
I am prepared to vote on it as we have it right now, strictly based on its merits alone. I don't care at all for these purposes about the PUD, because I don't know what's going to happen there. So as far as I'm concerned, the special use that I'm looking at today and whether or not it meets the 6 criteria, I am fully prepared to vote.
Councilmember Grevlin.
I'm fully prepared to just move this situation forward one way or the other, but given it is our responsibility to look at the greater context of it, I do think it makes more sense to look at it in the context of the PUD. So I do support postponement.
And I agree. There are too many moving parts here and unknowns, and voting for something that is unclear and has significant questions associated with its wisdom is premature at this time, until we see the big picture, the total package, and see what it is that will come forward from the Planning Commission. So my position is also to postpone. So is there anything additional that needs to be said on this matter? Yes. Not yet. Council. If it's being postponed, then your questions, your comments will apply when it comes up again. But it's being postponed now. So, and that will be that input will continue to be important, as obviously you know very well. Did your comment have something to do with the postponement portion of it? Well, come forward on that point. Yeah.
Joshua Hunter, resident on Thomas. I think it's kind of disappointing to see it postponed. I think it's a disservice to the public but also the applicant. If you saw the discussion at the Planning Commission meeting, they specifically, the chair repeatedly made sure that the discussion was focused just on the special use application. Is the PUD mentioned in the special use application? It's my understanding it's not, and that's why they focus the discussion on that only. So I think it should be. I disagree with the postponement. I think it's a disservice to the public, and I hope the council votes it down and continues the debate tonight to vote on the special use. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Turney.
Mayor, may I make an observation? I'm not even sure there's a representative from the applicant here.
No, there isn't.
And typically, standard practice would be when you're voting on a land use issue, you do so when the applicant
correct
is there, not in absentia. I don't know why the applicant's not here, whether there was a communication issue. I can't imagine that they took this matter for granted in front of the city council. So I just mentioned that. It didn't come up in your discussion, but I mention that as another fairly obvious reason why, if this motion to postpone moves forward, that it would be appropriate to do so, to make any type of final ruling in the absence of the applicant and any ability of this council to ask questions and get answers back. That would seem to me to be a disservice.
Thank you. Exactly right. So, Ms. Boucher, can you please call the roll on the motion to postpone indefinitely?
Stedman?
Yes.
Gerbrack?
No.
Baker?
Yes.
Blanchard?
Yes.
Gravelin?
Yes.
Kneckel?
Yes.
Woodwire?
Yes. So the item then is postponed. We then move on to the communications portion of tonight's meeting, and who's up first?
It would be Councilmember Gerbrack.
Thank you. We have, although the Summerfest is over, we still have some events happening at the Parks and Recreation Department, and this Saturday is one of them. From 10 to noon, you will be able to touch a truck till your heart's content. What is touch a truck? It's a good question. We are going to have trucks from the various city departments. So Public Safety will have at least a couple representatives there. Public Works will have a number of representative trucks there. And from 10 to noon in the community center parking lot, kids, adults, whoever, any age, feel free to come touch a truck, look at the truck, probably go in the truck. I don't
you
think that
drive
will
it?
be no, I don't think so. But that event is happening on Saturday. Again, that's Saturday from 10 to noon. 10 to noon, perfect. You'll be in home plenty of time for the noon kickoffs for college football. And as we're talking about football, the Lions are just about to kick off tonight. I'm wearing my Lions colors. So in the interest of moving this along, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Grevlin.
Like to comment, the tree board met last week, and the final number, Derek has escaped, is 92 trees, which roughly were close to 100 in the last few preceding years, so that's about average. They do want to encourage people in the year coming up for future consideration to consider planting them in your front yard as opposed to just the easements. In a lot of areas, the easements are pretty narrow and only leaves maybe one place to put a tree where utilities are. So for future tree planting, please consider your front yard as opposed to just the public green belts. And they also ended up discussing, well, they're still discussing the ordinance, which is close to coming before us. They're in their final review of that, so we should be seeing any recommendations they make to the tree ordinance very shortly. And they also were discussing rain gardens. They encourage people to look at SOCWA's website, SOCWA, the Water Authority, where they discuss rain gardens. So all of our environmental committees that recommend things to us have been very much prior to the rain event discussing the rain gardens as a piece of water retention. So this is something that has been going on. The environmental committee has been talking about for the last few months. They have sent things to Matt to look at to consider how we can encourage that throughout the city as a piece that is already also a possibility to work towards managing our stormwater. So they are actively looking at that, and the environmental committee meets this Friday at 6:30 p.m. in the public safety conference room. So come on out. These guys are all very dedicated environmentalists and have jobs accordingly and donate their time to trying to solve these very problems for Berkeley and encourage us to put these pieces in place as we go forward as well. And lastly, the Planning Commission does meet next Tuesday at 7:30, and La Salette is scheduled to be back on the table for their reconsideration. Thank you.
Councilmember Cadeckel.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This past Saturday, I attended the Stephen Siller event that we have. This is our second annual one in memory of a New York firefighter that lost his life during 9/11. Our mayor did a wonderful job representing us, and I want to congratulate Sergeant Justin Frost because what these firemen did, they ran with 65 pounds on their back with their tanks in full uniform. For those of you that don't know or didn't see the meeting a couple months ago, Fireman Siller was coming, he heard about 9/11, he was going to go golfing with his siblings, and he heard what was happening at the Twin Towers, got in his car with his equipment and started heading toward the situation. Unfortunately, the bridge was shut down, and so he put on his equipment, ran across the bridge into the situation, and unfortunately did not make it. So it was very good. I'm starting out with the bad news. We lost a long-time business owner in this city. Her sister still is running the business. It's called Blarney Stone Pub, and this past week, Gail Payne passed away, and the services are pending. She was in Florida. She had left, even though she was ill, she had left the hurricane situation, and when trying to get back in, she passed away. So I will keep you guys posted when the services are for those of you that are interested. This Thursday night starts the Holy Days for the Jewish people, some of our neighbors, and I want to wish everyone a happy and a healthy New Year. It ends next Saturday night, a week from Saturday night, with Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement. So I want to wish everyone a happy and healthy New Year. And then this past week was great. I think it was one of the best ones ever. I, along with some of my colleagues who you'll hear from, attended the Michigan Municipal League Convention in Holland, Michigan. Never been in Holland. If you ever get a chance, it's a great little town. And what we do is, City Manager was alluding to earlier, and also Mayor Pro Tem and myself, we spoke with people that go through some of the same situations we do. And that's what's great about these conventions. And then they have breakout sessions where we choose to each go to a different one so we can bring back as much information to the city as possible. One of the breakout sessions I went to was called Council Manager Relations, and talking about the relationship and the strategies that we use, the goal settings. And I was really happy to see that Berkeley's already doing a lot of the things they were suggesting. You've heard when we've gone, and some of you have joined us off campus, so to speak, and we had a day-long planning session. These are things they suggest to everybody throughout the state. And that way we come back, you know, with ideas and goals that we can set to move our city. We're all neighbors, and that's a term you're going to hear me use a lot more. You're not my residents, you're not my constituents, you're my neighbors. What happens to you happens to me and some of us. So we're all in this together. JFK once said, leadership and learning, not to steal the quotes, but I heard this in one of the sessions. JFK once said, leadership and learning are indispensable to each other. And it's so true. When we're able to reach out and speak with our different colleagues and speak to other managers, I think that enriches us and them as well. And real quick, another one that it was a general session that we were all part of called America in Bloom. And America in Bloom envisions communities across the country as vibrant places to live, work, and play. It's a teamwork of volunteers that get together and really beautify their city. And there are judges that come in for like 2-3 days, and they'll stay in hotels, and they are looking at everything. There's certain criteria. I mentioned it to our DDA director before the meeting. I think it's something that Berkeley should strive for, to be part of America in Bloom. They had Holland in Bloom. They have Midland in Bloom. We heard from a former mayor from Arroyo Grande, California. And so it's a great, great program. And thank you again for everything, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Baker.
Thank you, Your Honor. Continuing on the MML convention, as was mentioned, it was a great event. About 400 or so elected officials and electeds and city officials come together to share information, best practices, ask questions, and come away better for their time spent. One of the things I paid particular attention to was the downtown development work that Holland did and the stories that were shared by other communities along those same fronts. Working on safe, walkable streets, places to gather, lovely crosswalks. And Berkeley too will soon have some. Again, thank you for your leadership with that, Vivian. We talked a little bit different kinds of topics. Something that was interesting, the effects of federal Supreme Court decisions that work their way through the states into the municipalities. There was a good keynote on some of those decisions and the personalities involved and how those things affect us at the local level. Also sessions around setting and improving our community's energy strategies. So dovetailing off of the environmental work, from an environmental perspective and also from an energy perspective, what can we do as municipalities to continue to improve our energy profile so that the electricity and gas and water that we do use is done so thoughtfully and sustainably. Those are great. Couple other quick updates. I believe we're already covered earlier. I just want to highlight once again, the Historical Committee has these great new coffee mugs available. We saw them earlier during citizens' comments, and our vice chair is waving them around again here at the closure of the meeting. $10 is a bargain for what's sure to be a collector's item, celebrating our city's past as we continue to move forward together. Come check those out. Now, Bill Nye the Science Guy, he's no Jack Kennedy, but I tell you, Bill Nye the Science Guy once said, "Everyone you will ever meet knows something that you don't." Again, everyone you will ever meet knows something you don't. And so I'd like to echo our DDA director's invitation to come together with other people and learn something that you don't know and share some ideas that others don't know about what we can do with our downtown design guidelines and things. It's a terrific program. This workshop will be very interactive and engaging. Coming up next week's Wednesday, the 27th, 7 to 8:30 at the Collaborative Center at Berkeley High. It's great to be a part of the process, to see how these things happen, and months and years from now, as the guidelines that we begin to talk about here next week, as those guidelines come into fruition and into use around the city, you can see your handiwork, you can see your ideas and suggestions making a long-lasting imprint on our community. So please take advantage of that opportunity. Come share the things that you know that no one else does. We look forward to hearing your voice. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Stedden.
Okay, first the library. First of all, if you're here or at home watching this on TV, you missed the history of brewing in the Motor City. That was Detroit beer. That was tonight. The 3 adult things that are coming up is Cocktails and Coloring on September 25th at Amici's. Film screening of Wonder Woman, Wednesday, September 27th. And A Parent's Guide to Autism, Thursday, September 28th. And also Thursday, September 21st, Berkley Reading Society is reading The Orphan Master's Son. For children, there's a family movie, Lego Batman, on September 30th. Lapset Story Time is Mondays at 10:30. Preschool Story Time, Tuesdays at 10:30. This is through September, October, and November. Parent-toddler story times, Thursdays at 10:30. And, but check for specific dates and times on the website for the Berkley Public Library. I also went to this convention. I went on a mobile housing tour, and what I found out was that Holland, Michigan is dealing with the same thing as many Michigan cities are, and we are, and that's providing a variety of housing to meet the needs of the younger workforce and senior citizens or empty nesters. It addressed how Holland was dealing with developing more diverse housing stock. We toured 3 types of housing: apartments, small houses, it's not tiny houses, but small houses, and condos, both new building and adapting an old school building. We were only able to see the apartments from the outside. They looked promising. They were in the outskirts of a downtown area. Because the person that got his dates mixed up and had showed up the day before to give us a tour. Then we saw a little community of 6 small houses. They were 3 each across from each other with a common area in the center, 488 square feet each, very compact and very well put together. They had a common area for the residents. They sell for $109,000. The standalone condos were just like any other condo development you would see around, usually with 2 attached, in that kind of a format. But the most interesting development was the old school building, okay? Although I've said that since I'm a retired teacher and I have spent my entire life in a school building, that I would never retire in one. However, these were quite beautifully done. I still wouldn't retire in one, but they were quite beautifully done. They had started out wanting to do apartments, but the community wanted condos instead. They built 16 units in this building. There were a couple 1-bedrooms, there were 2 bedrooms, mostly 2 bedrooms, and 3 bedrooms. They sold, now this totally outprices me, $260,000 to $360,000 each. 15 of them were already sold, and they were not close to being finished. The original plan, I said, was apartments. There were 20 people on the tour, and 16 of us took the card of the person that was guiding us, because he was the one that had been in charge of all this, and it was an initiative by a ministry, not necessarily a builder. Okay. All of those 16 people had an old school building in their city that they did not know what to do with, and thought this looked like a very good option. The other one I went to, and I'm not going to go into this because there's a presentation that you can find online. The presenter was Chelsea Clark. It's the impact of the legalization of marijuana in Colorado. She's an intelligence analyst working for the Rocky Mountain High Intensity Drug Trafficking Area. That's RMHIDTA. Rocky Mountain HIDTA is what they called it. This group decided that since Colorado was the first to have both recreational and medical marijuana, that they owed it to the country and everybody else considering this to do a study and look at the data. And so they did an in-depth impact study. You can go to Chelsea Clark's website of RMHIDTA, or probably under the name of the report, which is The Legalization of Marijuana in Colorado, the Impact, and find the reports. It's quite interesting and shares factual data about the impact it has had on health, traffic accidents, beliefs that have been long held by many people. And I think before anybody makes a decision, you should look at some of these studies that are being done right now in terms of the impact of where it has been legalized.
Thank you. Councilmember Blanchard.
Thank you, Your Honor. Just like to say, we had another successful festival in our city. We had the County Oakland Irish Festival, which was fairly well attended. It's getting better every year. I just want to thank all the volunteers. They put in a lot of hard work making it happen, and we had a lot of great music. We had 2 stages down there, performers on both of them. The hit of the crowd was when the Irish dancers came, the kids, because that brought out all the parents and the grandparents and the aunts and uncles, and the downtown was pretty well packed at that point. But it was a very nice festival. I think everybody enjoyed themselves. The weather was much better than last year when it rained most of the time. So it's another successful festival. Thanks to the Chamber and the DDA for all their hard work on pulling that together. So that's all I have.
Very good. Thank you. Mr. Baumgarten.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I likewise attended the MML. Bless you. I want to thank City Council for that opportunity. Just 2 quick notes. It's been covered very well, but I'm always impressed by how well respected Berkeley is across the state, and it's reflected in conversations with elected officials, with appointed officials, statewide support agencies. Berkeley absolutely holds a very special place in a lot of people's hearts, and it's so great to see that reinforced. We had council members that were leading discussions, that were presenters. It's just a great time to get together with people that know cities, and because they know cities, they know Berkeley's something special. My next chat with Matt is coming up. It'll be October the 4th. It's 10-4, so you can't really get a better way of communicating than, 10-4. So we're hopefully gain some really good discussion that day. The city is currently looking for a communications coordinator. We had to unfortunately say goodbye to our former incumbent, Chelsea Machota, who got a great opportunity outside of the state, and so we had to say bye to her last Thursday. But as someone leaves, someone comes on. Our new public safety director, Mr. Matt Kane, is going to be joining the Berkley family on October the 2nd. So I'm excited to get to talk about that publicly, and we're excited for a very long career for Director Kane. So those are my 3 items. Like I said, if anybody wants more information on the communications director vacancy, it's on our website and with the MML as well. So look forward to good things happening.
Very good. Thank you. Mr. Attorney.
And Mayor and Council, I have nothing to add this evening.
Well, thank you. I'd like to thank the Mayor Pro Tem for conducting the last council meeting in my absence. But I did watch it on the internet, and everybody looked well and professional and passionate and caring, and the results are beginning to show themselves tonight with the kind of general thoughts you guys are putting together to deal with that flood event. And now the next council meeting will hopefully bring us something that we can vote on and act upon. So I'm thankful for that. I'd like to welcome our new Deputy City Clerk, Gina Cipriani. We're delighted that you've joined us. We're delighted especially that your parents were able to be here as well to see you sworn in. Former mayor of Medicine Heights passed away during the week, Mayor Ed Swanson. Ed lived in Berkeley for a number of years, a great character, great friend of our city, and we're going to miss him at mayor's meetings a great man. And with that, that's all I have to say. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Moved to adjourn by Councilmember Cadecle.
Support.
Support by Councilmember Blanchard. Ms. Boucher, would you please call the roll?
Turbrack,
Yes.
Baker,
Yes.
Blanchard,
Yes.
Gravelin,
Yes.
Kadeco,
Yes.
Stedman,
Yes.
O'Dwyer.
Yes. The September 18, 2017 council meeting is adjourned. Thank you.